Hey, so we're almost done. Remember that this video, along with all my other videos and all future videos, will have chapters so you can scroll through the part, because there is a lot to this video. It is essentially tying all the intricate parts of this boat and getting it ready to be finalized. I mean, the only thing we have left after we do all these things is the bow piece, which is maybe the more important part of the boat, and we'll talk about why in the next video coming. But this thing is almost done. We're almost about to put this thing on the water, and then we'll be doing stuff, because this is gonna be my main boat. I'm retiring the 16-footer I have to redo some things and put a bigger motor on it, and then this is gonna be my JonYak. This will be my boat that I go and fish, and I go forth and do things, and you know, my easy travel. I can go fish every morning on my lake before I go to work kind of boat, right? Who wants that? I want that. So for starters, we have a very, very unique battery. We have a lithium battery that is a 12 volt / 24 volt split. It does it all in one battery, weighs about 60 pounds, powers the entire boat. Secondly, we use 3 bilge pumps in this boat. Why? Because I want water to bleed out immediately. This boat is small, has a low water displacement, and one big giant wave can sink it. I've seen it happen, I've seen it done. I've heard X amount of testimonials on it happening to other people on 12-foot boats, and especially 10-foot boats, which is why I never advocate that anybody convert a 10-foot John boat ever. And I think a 1232 right now is pushing it. So that's why we're going to these lengths, adding all this foam, adding these extra bilges. I mean, I want water to just bleed out. If I get caught in anything at all, just bleeds it out. You know, almost 2,000 GPH. That's fast. That'll bleed out anything. That'll bleed out water faster than the boat can take it in, even if it has a really, really hard tear. So we show you how we're gonna do that and how we rigged it, why our double wall system to channel all the wires was so important, why it was an integral piece of how we were able to rework and reservice wires as we had to do things. And the last but certainly not least, we start to see the portable Livewell jack from Flow-Right. How I've been talking how I wanted to make that. I finally put it in this boat, so it's starting to come into fruition. So you will see that later on when it's on the water on how that works. We'll definitely be demoing all that. It's very exciting things. Maybe the most exciting. After a while, some of this gets redundant, but I'm really, really excited to test a lot of these things and see how this boat works, and give you my final impressions and finally get it on the water. We're about a week away from doing that, ladies and gentlemen. A week away from seeing this thing on the water. The Gen 7 core in this boat, the most important part and the reason why I was able even to accomplish what I did in this boat, it's all because of that design. But the design is as a prototype, so obviously with that there are flaws. But I've been working with Adam Ryan. You guys know Adam. He's been at my house. He's been in our videos. He's been in our tin can crew meetings. And we convinced him to rebuild his John boat. I convinced him to help me streamline this Gen 7 core. And he's done it pretty flawlessly. We've been able to do some very, very cool things. Our entire team, Nate, us, you know, we designed a core system that is pretty seamless and able to be dropped in. And we have like ready-made lids for the system. So you essentially buy an entire core for the boat and then tie the rest of it into the boat, and it's very, very simple. We're also going to be selling these hatches just by themselves, and a few select sizes that we think are going to be the most beneficial to people wanting them, and they're going to be hatches without the tracks. Hatches that work with the streamlined system of the Gen 7 and even the Gen X framing if you want to go, you know, to full 1.5 inches. It'll all work together. I want to show you that, and I definitely want you guys to check out Adam's whole system, whole series, because he went viral in his first John boat series for a reason. In the video, in his entire John boat series is up here in the iCard in the description below. And with that, let's get going. If you like this content, please help it trend. Subscribe, leave a like, a comment. Check me out on all my other social media platforms. It helps me trend more than you'll ever know. I'm going to just straight out admit it, I did not plan the best when it came to the electric panel. Just the more and more that I framed the boat in and put stuff in, the more apparent it became that I was not going to be able to do stuff how I normally did it, where it's highly congested and everything is just in one spot to be easily serviced and looked over and monitored. We're going to have to break it up this time. And we're also, right now I'm rebending I got a measurement wrong, and I'm just rebending essentially what was my Generation 5 bleed out lip. Lines up. Yep, like money. I think this is much better because for one, the water's just gonna bleed out. We just want to stop water from getting in the panel. I mean, this is gonna be a bleed out compartment. So we're not trying to stop water from getting in the compartment, trying to stop water to getting in the panel. So a bleed out panel, I think, where water will just immediately bleed out one of these corners we leave open, That's fine. So we're just gonna go ahead and rivet this in because we are really strapped for space. I don't even know what the freak we are going to do for the fuse block. We can't run it in here. It's too small. We're gonna run it inside there. That's the main electric area where the battery's gonna go. It's all chaos. Now that we got this just loosely installed in here, we are now just gonna get brackets and install them like so under here. And that's just gonna be short enough or long enough out just to catch the piece of sheet metal we're going to stick in there just as a very loose sheet. Be enough just possibly so we can get a little grip, maybe like out, maybe about that out, just so it can be in an area where we'll be able to run a few self-tappers in it just to keep it down, obviously so it doesn't shake, but you know, one in each corner. Over here, where we'll do it again. Oh, Harry, oh, I got it in. I'm using 1/8 inch rivets from a little starter kit I got from Harbor Freight. And if you're gonna use a manual riveter, this arrow ratcheting riveter is the best one you can use. And this is what we're doing to mount those little brackets in. That way that flat piece of sheet metal could just sit right on the brackets and be serviceable in and out of the compartment at will if you need to troubleshoot it. But let's go ahead and template this out and get this sorted. All right, I'm just gonna trace these corners with a ruler on those dots and cut that out and use it as a template for the aluminum sheets. Alright, that's all I needed to do. That's it. It's even a little long, short on each side, so if water even overtakes the lip, it's still going to bleed out and it won't sit on the switches. Whatever. We have these custom switch panels on our site for TV Nation panels, and we just use that to template out on the piece of aluminum where it needed to go. Then we gator skinned over the top to give it a protective outline, like so, and then we're more or less ready to try and drop that in right now. How we're going to attach the panel is use 1/8 inch drill bit and then a little small countersink bit, which is like a deburring bit we got from Harbor Freight. It works perfectly so long as you use it at low speed. And then we can install countersink stainless screws right into the units. We leave that at your discretion to pick where you're going to put the holes in these panels, as not all applications will ever be the same. Since we have no place to put the fuse block traditionally inside the panel itself, we're going to have to put it inside the major compartment on the wall. And we're doing that with this panel here. We gator skin the top. I use that as the primary grommet. People say that's not good enough, that it's eventually going to cause wire wear. So you could double skin both sides to prevent wear at all, or just use grommets, although you'll be limited on what you can actually put for a cosmetic face like we did the gator skins. After we organize all the wires through the main panel, I likely will go and epoxy those just so the wire can't move or wear. But right now we're securing them in, so this is more or less our drop-in interface that we put in here. But to kind of cut down on, you know, the wiring spaghetti everywhere, we go ahead and we use braided expandable sleeving. This is the wraparound stuff, not the solid stuff. So this stuff you can just wrap around kind of like wire looming. Pretty nice. Then we have a little bit more room to put other things, although I'm thinking we're probably going to relocate those breakers somewhere else. The panel will go in like so, which is a perfect spot for it, because we can just loop the wires into the main panel. And once we do that, then we can just go around and stick them on, and we're running power to the switches now. And then we have the negative end that we kind of daisy chain together to run the ground for the actual fuses. If you guys missed my major electric video, this is it in a nutshell. This is how we run everything. 8-gauge wire to a breaker, and then to the cutoff switch, to the fuse block, and then wrapped around. You can run multiple units just like this at the same way. We're only running one because we only need one. Then we're running that to the panel, but we're running obviously multiple wires to the panel. And from the panel, we will then run to all the lights and the pumps and the rest of the accessories. And then we are going to be having 2 bilge pumps, actually 3, that are going on float switches. And they will be bypassing that completely. So they can bypass directly to the panel, or they can bypass directly to the battery. We will be running them directly to the battery to pass the panel, just in case something happens and the breaker flips on the panel, which would deactivate the auxiliary bilge switches. We will later be running 10 gauge wire to one graph, maybe two, who knows, but right now just one. I can see us possibly running two. I can see us doing that right now, but right now just one. And then obviously to the nav lights, and then back forth. If you want to see more on this, we have a full electric video that teaches you anything and everything about everything we just did. And this is also in the iCards in the description area below. So just to confirm what we did, we just ran power wire leads from the fuse block right here to one terminal on the switch where the power loops through the switch. We are then ready to go ahead and mount the accessory to the rest of the switch, and that involves running the wire leads we ran to the accessories, and one of them is going to complete the circuit for the power lead to the switch, and then you run the negative or ground wire from the accessory through the other side, and you link it to the bus bar on the fuse block bus bar combo. You then plug your power lead from the accessory into the other side of the switch, and that completes the circuit, and the switch just interrupts the power at will, and that's how it's done. I always recommend that you label your wires with a label maker, which makes troubleshooting a breeze, because you will forget what you did. And it could be whatever, and you will likely have to access that panel at one point in time if anything goes wrong, the wire comes loose. You know, it can get very, very complicated. This is a very simplistic design in comparison to what we've done before, but it's still going to require some intricacy. A bigger problem is that we need conduits, and we need conduits that are solid, so when we pour foam, and I redo all that crap foam right there, I'm going to gut all that out and re-pour it. It needs to be able to re-pour around the conduit flawlessly. And how we're going to do that is we're running bilge hose tubing. And somebody also brought an important thing. A fan from the channel said, running duplex wire like this inside straight conduit piping actually adds to the heat of the wire, because PVC pipes, that retains heat very, very, it retains heat. It doesn't let it go. And so we're using this thin plastic, not going to retain a whole lot of heat, conduit piping that's flexible. You just run the wires through. We're running all the major bilge wires and leads through, because we need something to kind of cover that and be a nice fixation. You can get these rubber grommets. So I have these on Amazon, in my Amazon store, and we also have them in our major store. We'll link them in the description below, but we're using those through all the major walls because we'll be running a lot of those. I also ran a long time ago conduit piping through the foam to act as a bleed off from the top, so any residual water coming through the panels sitting on the foam will not sit there and ruin it. If you're wondering, that's quad foam, not the actual pour foam. We'll clean that up a little bit later, but right now we are going to make room for the bilge pumps. These are manual auto bilges, and they're low profile from TH Marine. They're about the most low profile one I can find, to the fact where I can stick those two in there. That give me enough protection, and I can still fit a 3-gallon gas tank. Fitting the 3-gallon gas tank back there was a big thing for me. I don't know how much I'll use it, but I do know there will be long hauls when you need it. And so these TH Marine manual auto bilges are about as low profile as it gets, and you can tell that because if you get a manual auto bilge, they're generally pretty bulky. They're either a manual bilge with a float switch, which takes up room, or they're just one big giant thing. These work, and I ran through those specifically because of their low profile design. Not because they're the best bilges, but because they're going to do exactly what I need them to do. And we put those on just aluminum sheet metal. We made those brackets, we secured them down with rivets, and then we rivet those to the side panels so they'll stay in place. Because the worst thing forever is a bilge that flops around, is not where it needs to be, or it turns, on the side and it's useless. You don't want none of that. So you make your own brackets and stick that in there. And now we're cleaning it up, running the bilge hose to those, and then looming up the wires, cleaning that up. So it's all organized chaos, but it works. And to top that off, there's still more stuff back there. I told you guys that I would run some sort of portable Livewell jack. We're going to accomplish this by running a remote line to a version 1 valve with some quick release fittings, and we can just activate that at will to set up a Livewell system whenever we need to. We're going to be running these elbow fittings on brackets that I made that I skinned with gator skins, and we're going to be placing these. I really wanted this design because I personally love to see the water leave my boat. I like to confirm, and I want it to be at the highest possible spot to make sure it does that. And so we're going to be running a similar setup to how I did to the Alumacraft, because I was a really big fan about how I made that bleed off manifold for all the water. So we're going to can't exactly do the most intricate one like that one because we have less room. Also, how we're going to cap the other side off to make sure nothing gets in there and debris doesn't get in there is we filled a quick lock fitting with epoxy just to make a blocked off void quick lock fitting that we will then stick on the other side to make sure no bugs or sticks or anything get in there, you know, because the back of the boat always gets the most jacked. Everything flows to the back, all the dirt, all the leaves, all the crap that gets in your boat flows back there. So I'm going to cap that off, and that way when we go to use the system, we'll be talking about how we use that system a little bit later. But right now we need to get this panel off to access the wiring. We're going to have to run more wire, about 3 more leads, plus we have to rerun the fish finder wire because I didn't run it right. We have to rerun it again through a different path. And thank heaven we have fully serviceable walls that are easily accessible with you know, anything. Generally can stick the wire through, or you can run fish tape very easily through. Either way, I'm so glad that we actually ran full double walls, not just partially through the boat. I've done double walls. I caught on that they were the better way to do it a few builds ago, but running them all the way to the front has been a difficult challenge. But this time I made it a point to do it and still be able to put the pour foam in the crucial spots, the crucial pour spots where we generally cover, and still have double walls there that are accessible. And so you see that where we run it into the front, where it goes into the terminal box, and out to the bow to cover all the crucial components we will be doing in the next video. But right now we need to start fabricating the inside of the actual battery well. We're going to start by mounting a cutoff switch.
So there's 2 types of fuses we'll be using. We'll be using a 60 amp for the trolling motor, which I really want to go down to 50 amp. Right now we have 60. We'll probably drop down to 50. 50 is just better. Really, unless you're running like a 36 volt motor, a 60's it'll work, but it's just really high, meaning that your stuff will have to start heating up a lot for this to ever go off. But I recommend 50 amp breaker, mainly for most trolling motors. And if you're in extremely cold regions, a 40 amp, just to compensate for the temperature deficit that's gonna stop this thing from ever activating. But right now we have a 20 amp, and I could have went as low as a 15. I think a 15 is pushing it, but probably a 15. I think a 15 amp is as small as they make for these waterproof ones. But I'm gonna have to make a little cutout, and this is gonna go flush in there too. And then bolts we're gonna just have to go right there on the face plate. That's how we faceplate that. And we ran there, and then we have the remote for the Livewell, the portable Livewell. We have that faceplate right there. We'll be doing the same thing from here. We'll be using that whole compartment to run these things in and out. I think it's the most intelligent way to do it without really jamming up the panel board there, which...
We install the 20 amp breaker first, and we install it next to the cutoff switch. That way we don't have to have too much of a link between the two. So we're running out of room pretty quickly between the remote line for the Livewell and this and the master switch right there. It's getting a little hairy, but we're gonna get it done. So we go ahead and we mount that through. It's a flush mount that mounts into the face. I'm trying to run those things right into the face so I can just see. I can just look at it and know that it's either it's good or it's not, right from where I'm fishing.
Make a cradle. I'll probably do it as 2 sticks of angle, and where I make it as a cradle to box this in, and I'll be attaching it to the forward and aft angle piece. And the battery will just sit there secure and won't be able to move, and I'll be able to also put mounting D-rings so the battery doesn't flop up and down. We'll be putting gator skins at the bottom for a cushion, and then that'll be securing the battery. The battery itself is pretty dope though, huh? Is the charger, I believe. That is a pretty serious charger. That is a full onboard battery charger. We can mount this in the boat. I'm not sure we will. I might just keep it outside the boat and use it as needed. Yeah, but that is a serious charger. All right, I just mounted these together in tandem to a piece of aluminum with gator skins. It's a nice little rubber mount. I got these little kits from Harbor Freight, and I just pick them up every now and then because I know there's gonna be some odd jobs where I'm gonna need hardware and I'm not gonna have any place to put it. There are 2 chargers that were sent with this battery. I labeled them 12 volt and 24 volt, but you can tell with the back sticker
that you can no longer see now, but this one has 14.9 volts max output. This one has 29 point something volts, so this is obviously the 24 volt one. So, but they're both at 10 amp. They both charge at 10 amps. So the 24 volt side will draw more power, but this one will be whatever. So this is like in and of itself a little heavy. So I have a choice to keep this out and not install it and then just have it out whenever I need to charge anything, or I could just not do that and install it in here right now. Alright, so I made these brackets. Never mind the pink heart thing here, that's just, I'm using that to protect the foam because it'll get messed up if I don't do something while I'm leaning over the boat. But these are meant to channel the battery in right here. Alright, so hindsight, I really should have taken care of this before. I didn't want to do it, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do, but winging it right now is kind of causing me some problems. How I'm going to avoid these problems is I'm going to put a cradle, and I'm going to give it enough of a gap to hold the battery, plus we're going to put some EVA foam in there to act kind of as a cushion, to give the battery some cushion. We're going to go ahead and level it out because part of it's sitting on the angle and the other part's facing the other way, so we have to put 1/8 inch angle underneath, and just to give it some support, and that'll help with its overall support against the hull. Putting batteries right on the hull I think is bad just because of their sheer weight and what they can do as the boat shutters down the water. So this is the next best solution, that we just put a cradle in here. And we are also installing some pad eyes. I got these pad eyes from Walmart, like on sale in like the kayak department, and I wanted to run D-rings. There is just no real way that D-rings are going to work very well here, so we're going to have to just be really conservative on how we're going to be able to secure that battery in. So we'll be doing that a little bit later, and we'll cover that in a later video on how we do that. I have ideas, they're just not going to come into fruition inside this video. But on the other hand, the cradle works fantastic for the battery. It's going to keep it center, and as soon as we put in the spots in place so the battery can't move at all. So we're using this Blue C system, and we have one that actually has the fuses instead of just the straight bus bars, which you have to run wires with fuse leads in. You can just take care of it right there. That's the best place, but due to time constraints and budget constraints, this boat is way more expensive than I thought it would be. We're going to be using these. They are cheaper. They come with terminal covers, that's really good. These are tin copper. I don't want to be, for convenience reasons, we're going to run it this way. See how much tougher the nylon is over the heat shrink? Way tougher. It's also way harder to squeeze. The bus bars mainly house all the inline fuse leads running from the float switches from the bilge pumps as an auxiliary switch that bypasses all of the electric. And then we start wiring in the wires for the trolling motor, although we'll be getting to that in the next video on how we run all that, and you'll just see all that. But right now, let's give you a brief glimpse of everything that has happened, that has came into fruition during this video. Check it out. So we're pretty good. Those switches came with the TV Nation switch panel that we have on our site. All those switches kind of came with it when I got the units. They're all lit up because on the back, depending on how you have the power running, you'll always run the light or you can always not run the light. So I mean, meaning when you click it on, then the light activates. So I kind of like it all lit up. But I might switch it around because that's how they're supposed to be, but also it doesn't really matter because you can clearly look at them and be like, okay, one's on, one's off. But if you're really in nights, night situations where you're kind of feeling and you're seeing, but I don't know if I'm going to take a boat this small out at night very much. Oh, it does need more lights though, knowing it needs another floodlight in here to see everything that's happening in there. It needs one flooding out into this compartment. And I have one rigged in here, one rigged in there, and then I have another one rigged up in here, I believe. Oh, this one's open. Yeah. Rigged up in there. But I do not have one rigged up in here. And then just looking at everything, that's gonna be a problem, especially in the morning when I'm getting ready. I mean, some of the most useful times is when you're trying to rig right before gray light. You're trying to get your stuff together. So I'll probably run a few more LEDs. I think it's just gonna be the most appropriate thing to do. You know, aside from that though, the boat is pretty rad. The power unit is awesome. You know, we got the 2 chargers down in there for 12 and 24 volt because it's a 12-24 volt split. All in one lithium battery. Super awesome, made by Underground Power. Somebody that we saw huge potential in early on and chose to sponsor and kind of help them on until they got big because we knew they would, and now they're huge. Now we'll be selling their batteries made for pre-order because everything, you know, is real tight right now, but I'm pretty happy with everything here. So let's continue on and finish this stuff. I'll finish rigging up the rest of the lights and then we're really gonna get on to the trolling motor part. And we're gonna be addressing all this mess and fixing and rigging. I mean, the front is the last thing to rig. Generally, I do the front fairly early on. This time I chose it to do last because the front is gonna be the most important part of the boat, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But I hope you guys like what you got so far. I'll see you guys around.